accept us. So it's wonderful that we come together on these reparation occasions so we can start to begin to seriously put together our program. And we can't just do it before the TV cameras. We've got to have some meetings behind the scenes where we're mapping out some serious endeavors. If we don't make the challenge to African peoples, we'll be sold down the road again. We don't know what time this is that we've been sold down, maybe the 10th time that we have participated in our own selling each other down the road. But we have 5 more years before the turn of this century, and we better get it together. As others like W. Du Bois, in looking at this new century 100 years ago, said the problem of the 20th century is going to be the color line. And it was. And our African scholars, our African warriors, our African lawyers, our African teachers are looking at the 21st century, and we are clear that the problem of the 21st century is the African mind. The African mind, M-I-N-D, and the African mind, M-I-N-E. Whoever controls the African mind will control the African mind. And that's what the 21st century is going to be all about. We've got to get on good foot, brothers and sisters, get ready, and declare the mineral wealth of Africa ours. Declare the mineral wealth of Africa was taken out of Namibia for 10 years while the British delayed independence and stocked the wealth of Namibia in Europe. We need to declare that reparations. We need to declare every gold brick that has been taken out of Africa and stored in the banks in Switzerland and in Fort Knox or wherever they are, part of Africa's legacy, reparations. We need to declare and tack our demands on the door of Lloyd's of London and the Bank of London and Barclays Bank for reparations owed black people. And let's not forget the House of Rothschild and its various branches of the bank. We've got to get serious, brothers and sisters. And then those Africans who think that there's some special relationship that we have with the Dutch. Yes, we have a special relationship with the Dutch. It has nothing to do with tulips. It has to do with the Dutch being among the worst slavers in the history of the world, having ripped the slave system off with the English from the Catholic nations. And when they were kicked out of the Atlantic, they went over to the Pacific and continued in the Indian Ocean and continued the enslaving process and exploitation. We need to know what is owed us by these Europeans. So that's why it's important for us to come together when we do like this and begin to lay it out. But you got to master the information. You can't just say, I heard Dr. Jeffries introduce Professor Small and he outlined it a few things. No. You've got to be the source of information data yourself. You've got to study this stuff. We need revolutionary study groups. Knowledge is power. You're armed with this information. That's why they're coming at us. That's why they attempt to destroy me. We have done nothing. You see any armies around us? Why would they be arrayed against us except they know that we're tapping into this knowledge and we have a systems analysis that we apply to it. We don't need to single out Jews in reference to enslavement barracks because we look at every person involved. We deal with Africans on the continent as part of our family affair and reclaim our legacy. But we deal with every European group that was involved in enslavement. The Catholic Church initiated the process, and all the proclamations joined in after. The Dutch, the Danes, the Swedes, the Brandenburg Germans, the Huguenot French. And the Jews participated with the Catholics. They participated with the Protestants. They can't say their hands are clean, but you've got to have the documentation information. Don't even raise the question unless you have some documentation information. And if you have documentation information, at least know where you can get it. Most of you are lined up in your closets, got all kinds of kente cloth shoes and earrings with Nefertiti symbols and Nefertiti. Look, we need to know what books do you have in your library. And I don't mean books by Toni Morrison and books by Macmillan and books by whomever. What books do you have to document the Holocaust? You need to start Holocaust libraries in your home. You need to have the documentation. First and foremost, start off with something like this, just for a teaser. Documents illustrative of the history of the slave trade to America by Elizabeth Donner. This is volume number 2. There are 4 volumes. This is what I've been studying since 1970. When I got a hold of this, when we were working with Alex Haley and the project dealing with the black family worldwide. When I cite statistics and what comes out of documentary sources such as this. And then we have for you outside at the desk where we have some of the information we hope that you will be able to purchase and help us with the struggle. We have a list of the 40 or 50 books dealing with the Jews and slavery. 30 are written by outstanding Jewish scholars themselves. You need to know that list. You need to know that a Jonathan Israel, a Jewish scholar, has printed 5 or 6 books on the Jewish involvement in the system of exploitation that was the slave system. He refers to it as European Jewry in the age of materialism, of mercantilism, 1550 to 1750. That's the Jewish golden age in Amsterdam, where the Jews and Gentiles were trying to take the slave system from the Catholics and exploiting us. And around this synagogue, the system of enslavement was particularly developed because it was a haphazard operation before these businessmen, Dutch and businessmen Jews got together to make it a real system where ships were furnished in the European ports and financed and insured in the European ports. And they went along that coast of Africa, touching base with all those slave ports and dungeons, and making a profit in the shipping of, in the staffing of the ships in Europe, making a profit in the trading on the coast of Africa, and taking enslaved Africans to the plantations of the West Indies and South America and North America, making a profit there, and taking the profit of slave labor back to Europe and making a profit there. When you're talking about reparations, you've got to go to Manchester and Liverpool. You've got to go to North and Bordeaux. You have to find that slave ship that left there, went all the way through that route, and then came back there, making a profit at every level. We need to document the profits made. So when you calculate the wealth and the accumulation of wealth on our backs, it's a sum that can never be paid. Even the interest couldn't even be thought about when you put together your Holocaust documentation. You've got to know what you need to do, brothers and sisters. And then, of course, the struggle is not only the struggle of bet. You need to get a hold of a book called The Sins of the Fathers by James Pope Hennessy, talking about the British enslavement and what the British did. Professor Scobie and others have written extensively about that. And, of course, when you deal with America, our sister Shashay has not only put together this particular document, which is her dissertation for you, but we have for you, of course, we need to generate some money, so you know I'm taking my case up to the Supreme Court. Clarence Thomas Court going to be visited Monday with a petition of writ of certiorari that we're going to make them stand up and reveal themselves. They are destroying their First Amendment and their due process and their academic freedom in order to get at a black man who's done nothing but raise the truth and will continue to raise the truth until his last breath. Okay. This is the Sister's Statement overview of the Jewish role in the continuity of the international slave trade system. Use it with discretion. It's for your libraries. It's not for you to put on the press and take it to the New York Times, etc. This is what Sister Shashi provided for me in 1990 when the struggle was at its hottest and people were running from it. Sister walked up and said, I'm going to provide the brother with ammunition. And she did. And it was published in the City Sun in New York. Other people ran away. Shashi ran to me, got busy, and provided the armor. So she's got her book, Criminalizing the Race. And we're talking about our brothers in prison now. They're going to kill our brother Abdul Jamal on Marcus Garvey's birthday. This is criminal, but this is what to be expected from the Crackerzoid. You have to understand that what you're dealing with. And as I try to wind it down for Brother Small, you're going to have to deal with South Africa. You're going to have to deal with it. You're going to have to know the distinction between Winnie Mandela's South Africa and her future for South Africa and Nelson Mandela. This is not to put the brother down, but the brother is the product of another progressive struggle of the 50s and 60s. Winning is the product of the struggle of the 70s and 80s, symbolized by Steve Biko, who gave his life in that struggle, and the Black Conscious Movement when they bashed his brains out. But before they did, he left us with empowering words and thoughts and ideas. And among those was this statement: the most potent weapon in the hands of the oppressor is the mind of the oppressed. The mind of the oppressed, this is what our sister knows and feels. And so we need to begin to understand what she is all about. So we did a particular volume on South Africa. And we have some copies of the major article I did on that. But to get the landlords and find out who got those diamonds out of Africa and how they used that to build Anglo-American, etc. Master the knowledge. And so you can tap into some of this information. Brother Smalls will be delivering his particular understanding. We have this information out there for you. Blacks who fought in the American Revolutionary War, the symbol of and the significance of that. And the other important document is Professor Scobie's statement on reparations. And right, out of the Caribbean, how they made the decision, the House of Rothschild, to pay the slave masters and not to pay the enslaved. and we were invited to a conference